journalist with statewide followings. A.G. Gancarski writes for FloridaPolitics.com and Folio Weekly. Also with us, Ed Dean, radio talk show host, appearing in the Morning Drive on WBOB, and again, statewide following. I appreciate the chance just to hear from you. Obviously, you gentlemen, like me, you're out talking to not just the people involved, but the people who are concerned about these issues. So let's start here. What's the reaction to having the conversation about Confederate monuments in Jacksonville when you hear from callers, Ed, or you're talking with people at council, Ed?
It's like 90-10. The majority of those out there, even of those in the black community that have called into this radio show, say, this doesn't affect our back pocket, this doesn't affect jobs, why is this on the radar? And in fact, there has been no legislation even on the map. I mean, Tuesday night, you had people like Matt Schellenberg, rather talk about term limits, got drowned out by 100-1 about the issue of removing Confederate monuments. If the issue goes down to moving them into a museum, and that is on the ballot, or let's say that that's on the issue and it's going to happen, I think a lot of people can get behind that. A lot of people don't think that's going to happen.
Well, not sure where it's going yet because there's nothing that is legislatively pushed forward yet. A.G., what do you hear?
Yeah, I think Schellenberg was better off letting them talk about monuments rather than his term limits bill, for one thing. But, you know, there's not a lot of enthusiasm on the council for actually pushing this bill through. I mean, there's a reason it hasn't been filed yet, and there's really not anybody who's going to carry it. Anna Brochet has been walking it back. You know, she did a press release 2 weeks ago saying she wanted to remove the monuments, but by the end of last week, she basically abandoned that position. So it leaves the question open of who's going to carry the bill. I'm hearing that an African-American Democrat may end up carrying the bill, and it may get through committees, but if it gets to the floor of the council, you know what's going to happen. Floor amendments, a lot of sandbagging, a lot of kneecapping, because Mayor Lenny Curry does not want this bill to go through.
Well, so Mayor Curry is not saying that publicly, at least. He's saying, okay, my priorities are still over here, and I'm still focusing on them, so I'll essentially, I think he's saying I'll deal with it if it comes to council.
Yes.
Is there something out of sorts here with the council president, as you put it, getting out in front of this?
Well, I think she's being too reactive, and if you want to be proactive, that's one argument. But we do not have Charlottesville all over the map. We don't have them in St. Augustine the other evening when you guys reported peaceful protests. The same thing in Hemming Park. We don't have, as we say, Mississippi burnings happening left and right. We have jobs coming in. Amazon's talking about 4,000 jobs, UPS at 1,500, IKEA at 500, Baptist Health. Jacksonville's on the map for jobs. Now we're on the map where, if we don't pass, say, some sort of bill that does something with monuments, we might either be boycotted, or now we might be on the map where, say, Jacksonville now might be a pro-friendly place because of Confederate monuments. That's the kind of area I don't think Jacksonville wants to be put on the map.
Well, and the mayor certainly it seems to feel that way. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but that's at least what we're getting from
Mayor's concern is public safety.
Yeah.
And the mayor has spoken numerous times about hearing chatter from outside groups that would come in to influence this debate. You're seeing it on both sides. Obviously, there's the Confederate monument people on the right, but on the left, you're seeing Black Lives Matter and Antifa and these other groups. And the longer this goes on, the more chance there's going to be, you know, a conflagration between these people, because you know, the extremists are going to pull the debate, and ultimately, if the extremists are pulling the debate, they'll define the debate. They'll be the ones that we'll be quoting and talking to, and the people in the middle who are more or less not that interested in either way are going to be left out of discussion.
Well, I do want to point out, so not everyone arrived at City Council this week predisposed to one side or the other. I want you to hear from a woman who was there and spoke with us. She said she was really focused on just the importance of having a conversation about the issue.
I'm actually a history major in college, and I think it's really important for public history to be discussed in a forum such as this. I think a lot of times we take history for granted, and so the fact that this issue it's frustrating sometimes because people have such heated opinions about it, but people are passionate about history, and so I think it's really important that this is a conversation that we're having right now.
So that's the element I kind of want to focus on here, AG, and then Ed, I want to hear from you. Isn't it important to have the conversation? What's wrong with, and this county's the city council president, but what's wrong with somebody in local government saying, hey, let's at least discuss this because it has become a national issue, right?
Yeah, I mean, you can discuss it, you can contextualize, you can do what they're doing in Charleston, put up signs explaining what the monuments are about. But, you know, Jacksonville history is about more than a Confederacy. And if we reduce Jacksonville history to Confederacy, to that 4-year period and the aftermath, then it opens up a lot of questions like, for people who oppose the monuments, why are the monuments even there? What are they memorializing? They say it's white supremacy. They point out that the monuments were put out during Jim Crow type eras, not just in Jacksonville, but across the country. And, so if we're having that discussion, it opens up a lot of other discussions. It's not just monuments.
Right.
It's about, the entire power structure of not just the city, but the country itself.
Ed, that question to you, isn't it a good idea to have these conversations instead of just kind of ignoring it and saying, well, that's other places in the country we don't want to talk about?
Here's a conversation. This conversation has been around for the last several years. Why now? Why not back then? Also, where does Anna Brochet, and she had even admitted that, okay, this is kind of phase one. I don't know where this is going.
Yeah.
Where do you put the brakes on? Do you get rid of now schools named after Jeb Stuart, Robert E. Lee, anything with the last name Lee? Do you get rid of Old Dixie Highway? What about St. Augustine? Hello? On some of that as well. Where do you put the brakes on? I think some of this, with all due respect, is manufactured. For those out there, it doesn't seem, they've got the HRO, pension reform. I don't know, maybe there's a quietness on the left that they can't seem to get some of their conversations out there. If you want to make this political, why now? Why such an outrage? What does this have to do with jobs coming in? How is this going to pertain to your back pocket? Look at changing the name of the school that they did a few years ago. And the school, as of right now, is still a D-rated school. Changing the name does not affect all of this. That's a discussion I think should take place about history, maybe a museum, have those of the Underground Railroad, those that are slave owners, those that were slave, Union, Southerners, want to abide and conversate with all that together, mix it in. That would be a fair conversation.
Here's the thing, Ed, though. This is the thing. When you look at these schools and you look at these edifices, they were named during Jim Crow eras. You look at the mid-century stuff that was named, all those dedications were intended to reinforce a particular social order. That social order had white people on top, African Americans on the bottom. If that's a conversation that, people want to have, great, we can have that conversation. And if you want to take that conversation and extend it to present day, you look at things like mass incarceration. You look at things like, inadequate educational outcomes, inadequate socioeconomic outcomes. You talk about jobs many times, but here's the thing about jobs. They're not getting everywhere in the community. Those jobs are getting to some people, but if you go to Northwest Jackson, North Side, other areas, it's like 1968 over there. It's like consolidation never happened. And that's the Confederate legacy that many people are objecting to.
But Amazon.com just said we're going to open up in the urban areas, and that's where a lot of those applicants happen. Remember, Charles Barkley.
Change the jobs component there.
Charles Barkley said, no one's paying attention to this, and we didn't know there was a monument there. Our goal is to implement those of a better society in the black communities. You've got problems in the north side with crime and everything else, and they're telling me they're taking down a monument. By the way, I like putting them in the museums. I think there's a good conversation there.
Which museum do you want to do?
We have existing buildings. We can do that.
Well, might have to build one, but so let's keep talking about this. We're going to take a pause here and then come right back. So stay with us here. Hey, as we do that, an important part